that cold and hard tone, as if talking to a stranger. I remembered that when I first joined the company, an old employee lost the data, but in order to keep his job, he pushed the responsibility on me. He is a veteran in the workplace and has prepared all the evidence. Everyone thinks it is my fault. I called Jiang Yi to tell him aggrievedly. Jiang Yi told me not to cry, and he came to help me solve the problem in the end. I asked Jiang Yi, "Have you ever doubted me?" He hugged me. "As long as you say it's not, I will believe you unconditionally." I sniffed, clenched my fists, and said word by word, "Jiang Yi, I said it was not me." He-Man took the opportunity to interrupt again. "Jiang Yi, this matter has nothing to do with Miss Shen." I couldn't stand it anymore. "Shut up. Enough?" Yang Yi yelled at me. Shu, I'm so disappointed in you. You never lied before. You admitted your mistakes and corrected them when you knew them. I laughed until tears came out of my eyes. I didn't do anything wrong, so why should I admit it? Who is wrong now? Who is not admitting it? He shattered the beautiful thoughts that I had left in the past 8 years again and again. I was sad that we should have been fine, but it turned out like this. I was sad that I wasted 8 years and ended up in a complete failure. I looked at Jiang Yi, who was clearly in front of me, but his face gradually blurred in my heart. Something in my heart was gradually collapsing. I couldn't help but let my tears fall. Jiang Yi suddenly panicked. Shu. He wanted to walk towards me. He-Man suddenly sneezed, stopping Jiang Yi's steps. She took off her coat and gave it back to Jiang Yi, then crossed her arms, her eyes red, and looked sensible and pitiful. "Give Miss Shen your coat, and then take her home. I can do it alone." Jiang Yi glanced at me and finally put the coat back on He-Man. "It's okay. Since I'm here, I should take you home." He turned to me and said, "Go back and calm down. I'll be back later." I watched He-Man sit in the passenger seat. The car started slowly. He-Man lowered the window and smiled at me, provocative and dazzling. 7. I stood there for a long time. My tears had been dried by the wind, and the corners of collapse were slowly rebuilt by me, and they were more solid. I don't want rotten and spoiled feelings, but I won't fulfill them. Those who interfere and betray don't deserve perfection. A clear plan was gradually built in my mind. I won't lose. 8. He-Man, who came to work today, was very different from usual. She put on makeup and wore a plain white dress. The most eye-catching thing was the necklace on her neck. Because she changed so much today, colleagues were curious and gathered around to ask if good things were coming. She smiled shyly. "No, I just suddenly wanted to change myself. I just saw this necklace when I went to the mall the day before yesterday. It costs more than 20,000 yuan. Shao, man, your change is not cheap." He-Man subconsciously raised her head and touched the necklace on her neck with her hand. "It's not my money. It was given by someone else." "Oh, Tilda, this person must not be an ordinary person. Ordinary people would not give such an expensive gift." They were chatting in the tea room, and I was grinding coffee by hand, and all the conversations went into my ears. Seeing that I didn't join, He-Man came over deliberately, and the diamond necklace on her neck was very shiny. "Miss Shen, do you need help?" She really changed a lot in one night. She was no longer as timid as before. She looked as if she was sure of success. I looked coldly. "No, thank you." Other people in the tea room had left one after another, leaving only me and her. She said, "I'm sorry. When Jiang Yi sent me back last night, my bathroom water heater and shower were broken. He helped me fix it for a long time and got my clothes wet. I thought it was inconvenient for him to go back, so I let him stay at my house overnight. But don't worry, Miss Shen Jiang Yi slept on the sofa in the living room, and we didn't have any relationship. Do you want to rob?" I said. He-Man was stunned. "What? Do you want to rob Jiang Yi?" I looked at her and repeated it. He-Man was unsure of what I meant for a moment and looked at me quietly without answering. I continued, "But do you think Jiang Yi will divorce me? Your family is average, and you are entangled with a gambler. Your own conditions provoked her. He-Man, what confidence do you have to snatch him away?" He-Man was so angry that her face turned red and white. "Don't look down on others. You are just relying on reincarnation. Don't think you are superior. Jiang Yi is not such a superficial person." "Really? Then I'll wait. Don't let me down." I looked at her resentful and vicious eyes and left with the brewed coffee. I went to find Sister Bin, gave her Jiang Yi's mobile phone number, and asked her to help do something. When I got off work in the afternoon, Jiang Yi appeared at the company gate with flowers in his hands. 9. He-Man and I walked out of the company gate one after another. He-Man waved to Jiang Yi excitedly. "Jiang Yi? Ah?" Jiang Yi just glanced at her, held the flowers, passed by her, and walked towards me. He looked guilty. "I'm sorry, Chukyu. I wrongly blamed you for what happened yesterday." I asked Sister Bin to tell He-Man that she was the one who introduced the blind date to her. He-Man stood by and didn't leave, her eyes like needles piercing me. I lowered my eyes and pinched my palms, letting myself feel the pain so that I could squeeze out a few tears. Looking up again, I changed my expression, tears in my eyes, and looked at Jiang Yi aggrievedly. "I said it many times yesterday, but you didn't believe me. You left me alone on the side of the road. You never did this before. You said you believed me no matter what." I understand Jiang Yi. He is a person who is easy to be soft-hearted and guilty, especially sympathetic to the weak. He-Man used this to squeeze into us step by step. If she uses it, I will use it too, and I will use it better. Seeing me cry and thinking about how he wronged me yesterday, Jiang Yi felt even more guilty. He held the flowers in one hand and held me in his arms with the other hand, gently patting my back and whispering apologies. I'm sorry. Stop crying, okay? I'll take you to eat something delicious later." I leaned my face against Jiang Yi's chest and looked at Jiang Man. She stared at me, and the jealousy and anger in her eyes almost burned me to ashes. I raised the corner of my mouth. My tears that day worked, and the guilt made Jiang Yi stay at home obediently these days. Occasionally, there would be a few calls, and he would sneak to the balcony to answer them. But after answering, he still stayed at home steadily and did not go out. During this period, I did not mention He-Man's matter, and Zhang Yi would not take the initiative to mention it. I kept telling myself not to rush. The time has not come. In the past few days, He-Man has been looking at me with resentment in the company. It's useless to force someone who doesn't love you to stay by your side. This will only make him more miserable and hate you more. I looked at her expressionlessly. Didn't I tell you to grab it yourself? Who can you blame if you don't have the ability? You? He-Man's eyes were fierce, and she pointed at me. Don't talk too early. Just wait. The next day, He-Man asked for sick leave. 10. Around 9 o'clock that night, Zhang Yi's phone kept ringing. He hung up many times, and finally got up to answer it on the balcony. After answering the phone, he looked hurried. Su, the company has some urgent matters and needs to work overtime. I'll go back first. You don't have to wait for me. Go to bed first. Okay? I watched him walk out of the door in a hurry, turned around and continued to watch my Hachiko, a dog's tale. About 20 minutes later, I picked up my phone and saw He-Man posted a circle of friends. You said I could find you whenever I needed something. You did it. The picture was a photo of her getting an IV drip in the hospital. In the photo, another hand was holding the 4 tube of the 4 bottle, acting as a heating pad to make the liquid flowing into the blood vessels less cold. Both of them had red safety ropes on their hands. The face was not shown, but I knew who it was. A young intern who had just come to the company commented below. Sister Xiaomin, please take care of yourself. P.S. Your boyfriend is so nice. He even used his hands to warm up the 4 tube for you. He-Man replied, Thank you for your concern, but he is not your boyfriend. Young intern, I am ready to be. I accompanied you to get an IV drip in the middle of the night, and we even wore a couple bracelet. I got up, took the car keys and went out, driving to the hospital. Standing outside the infusion room, I saw He-Man leaning on Zhang Yi's shoulder with her eyes closed, and Zhang Yi still held the infusion tube in one hand. I watched calmly. My heart was calm, but I had to cry. I began to recall the movie scene in Hachiko, A Dog's Tale. The dog Hachiko didn't know that Professor Parker was gone. He still went to the station to wait for Professor Parker day after day, until he was old and faltering. Finally, Mrs. Parker returned to the old place and asked him, crying, "You will get sick. Are you still waiting for him?" It is still waiting. It keeps waiting. It interprets love, which is loyalty and waiting. Things that dogs can do, but people can't. I think, in the future, I will still keep a dog. I finally shed tears, walked into the infusion room with tears, and called Zhang Yi's name with a sobbing voice and pain. Zhang Yi, didn't you say you were working overtime at the company? Zhang Yi was stunned when he saw me. Then he pushed He-Man away and stood up in a panic, even stuttering when he spoke. Chew! Shu! Chew! I picked up the prepared stomach medicine. I just rummaged through the spare medicine box and found that your stomach medicine was gone. I was worried that you would have a stomachache after working overtime, so I hurried out to buy it for you. With tears in my eyes and biting my lips, I looked at He-Man, then looked at him. But shouldn't I have come? If you have a stomachache, remember to take it. I'm leaving first. I put the medicine on the ground and turned to leave. I heard footsteps chasing me, and then He-Man shouted, "Jiang Yi!" But Jiang Yi still chased me outside. Cha, sha, cha. Jiang Yi grabbed me anxiously. I didn't cry or make a scene. I just looked at him with red eyes. His expression was flustered, guilty, and urgent. Chew, chew, He-Man and I. Nothing happened between us. I just treated her as my sister. You know, she was my assistant for 4 years, and finally resigned for me. I have an obligation to take care of her, I said in a crying voice. But the first time you wronged me for He-Man and left me on the side of the road. This time, you lied to me that you had to work overtime, but you came to accompany He-Man for an injection. I was worried that you had no medicine for your stomachache, so I came out in the middle of the night to buy it for you. You said she was with you for 4 years. Then what about the 8 years we were together? How can I believe you? Jiang Yi's guilt became deeper and deeper. While wiping my tears, he raised his hand and swore, "I will never be alone with He-Man again in the future. If this happens again, I will be struck by lightning. Okay?" I lowered my eyes. Only children believe in such empty vows. This is not what I want. But I softened my voice and said, "Then you can't lie to me again."